Ben and Graham show you the big movie Listicles. This week, the top 10 worst Bond movies.
Hello and welcome back to another show. Graham, how you doing?
I'm all right. How are you, Ben?
I'm not too bad. And we are going to be talking in this episode of the show about Bond. We're going into the bondage, the realms of bondage.
James Bond. 007.
License to Kill. We're not doing the best Bonds because that's kind of
that's been done a million times, hasn't it?
And it's not as much fun.
Okay.
As picking the worst Bonds.
The worst Bonds. That's like trying to pick the worst Beatles tracks, isn't it? I mean, the bad ones are all right.
Well, I don't know. There are some pretty ropey moments in quite a few Bond films.
Yeah, but I mean, as an oeuvre, is that the right word?
Oeuvre.
As an oeuvre.
Just let's get it out of the way at the start. I mean, what is your favourite Bond film?
Favourite Bond film?
Because I've got three I can't decide between.
I just absolutely love The Bones of Spy Who Loved Me, just for the intro sequence and the music. That intro sequence where he goes off the cliff on his skis, and then it opens, and the parachute opens, and it's the Union flag.
But you can't love a Bond film just for the opening credit sequence.
But that just blew everything out the water. Well, I grew up when Roger Moore was the Bond that you always saw on the telly.
Yeah, but he is obviously the crappiest Bond. I mean, he was old to begin with, and by the time he copped out...
I disagree with that, and that's why
we'll get on to that.
List.
No, I'm a big fan of... I actually really, really like GoldenEye. Goldfinger, obviously.
GoldenEye was
quite
very
easy.
good.
GoldenEye was by far the best of the Pierce Brosnan Bonds.
Really good N64 game.
He had a decent bad guy, and, I mean, that jump from the dam is amazing.
That is pretty cool.
It's really cool. And
he doesn't have a Union flag parachute.
Oh, okay.
But that's
because he's not a gammon. And I really like Skyfall. And I know you've got some problems with Skyfall, but I think the fact that the second half of the movie is a grown-up version of Home Alone is great fun. It really is. It's great fun. And I know his one job,
that Kevin McAllister grew up to be the Jigsaw killer in the movie series.
I'm just checking that Skyfall isn't on your list of worst bombs, and it's not. And I know you've got it. Oh right, well you've got a few problems with it. Well, we'll get to those in another episode. So if you're new to the show, we're going to go through our top 10, and when we get to our number ones or
big number ones,
our big number 1 and 2, the one that we both think should
be
take
number
pride
one.
of place.
Yeah.
We're not going to pick that. It's over to you. And you can vote on our Twitter channel, our Twitter feed, and you can also tell us where we got everything wrong and what your worst Bond movie is and
what
why.
we missed out. Yeah,
why. There has to be a reason. We've got reasons, and we need reasons. So we're going to start at number 10 on this list. I've had to make copious notes because I've seen some Bond films recently, but I've actually put Quantum of Solace at number 10.
All right.
I've not got many problems with this film. I mean, it's Daniel Craig, so
I
it's
can't remember it. That's my problem with it.
That's mainly my problem.
I can't remember what happens. I can't remember who's in it.
Well, what I can tell you about Quantum of Solace is...
I just can't remember.
The title's terrible. What on earth is a Quantum of Solace? What does that even mean?
I mean, it was a line used by Ian Fleming.
It's like picked out of a cracker or a fortune cookie. It means nothing.
It wasn't Ian Fleming.
It doesn't mean anything.
I think it was a short story.
But you're right to say you can't remember anything about that film because I can't remember anything about that film.
What was the theme tune? Whistle the theme tune.
I don't have a clue who sang the theme tune. It wasn't Dennis Waterman, I can tell you that. What the theme tune was. All I know is the plot made no sense. It was pretty dull. And most crucially of all, for an action film, it's forgettable. It's utterly forgettable. Yeah. Number 10, Quantum of Solace.
They were trying to make a point about water, weren't they? It was like water.
Don't try and pretend you can remember it because I can't remember anything about it. Yeah. It's rubbish. What's your number 9, Graham?
My number 9 is you know what? Every Bond film has its redeeming sort of features, and our number 9 is Octopussy. Although it has one of the best theme tunes, which is All Time High by Rita Coolidge, and it's absolutely brilliant. It's such a great song. But what a silly, silly Bond film. What does the henchman have? Can you remember? Well,
I can't remember.
In Octopussy.
Again, the theme tune is his one redeeming feature, and I can't remember anything about the film.
So Oddjob in Goldfinger uses his
steel-rimmed hat, which is fantastic.
And the man with the golden gun, Christopher Lee, has a golden gun.
Obviously.
And what's her name out of, I think it's the first one, Dr. No, she has a blade in her shoe. that she tries to club. Is it Club a name?
I don't
the woman,
know.
The little ugly woman who's got.
Okay, so what's the weapon of choice?
It's a yo-yo. It's a yo-yo.
No, sorry, no,
it's a yo-yo with like a circular a saw blade.
Oh, okay. It's a bit like one of those Is it what are they called? Those things that were banned in the 80s because they were. Well, not a spinner.
Coca-Cola
a fidget spinner. No, I don't know what they're called.
Coca-Cola spinner.
Some kind of ninja weapon that's really actually quite dangerous.
Nunchucks.
Something like that. Anyway, so he's got a yo-yo.
He's got a yo-yo.
Oh, that's rubbish.
With this sort of serrated edges on it, and he stands above people. So you've got to have somewhere set up where you can stand above someone on a balcony and then drop this yo-yo down on them from above, which is complete. And basically, they're in bed, and there's a balcony above the bed because that always happens. You know, think about how many bedrooms you've been in that have a balcony behind above the bed.
Okay.
For in order to drop this, it's just very silly. But again, saving graces, redeeming features. It was filmed in Udaipur in India. And if you go to Udaipur every night in the restaurants and cafes in Udaipur, they show Roger Moore in Octopussy.
And that's another reason. I mean, the problem, I could have picked just all Roger Moore's outings as Bond to be in this list.
Really?
Because,
You hate him
we'll get on to
badly?
why. It's not that I hate.
Oh, mate.
Well, he's a
out.
terrible actor and he was too old
You're
to
a
begin
terrible
with.
actor.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. You're a terrible person and you should feel bad.
Okay, so that's your number 9. My number 8 is Diamonds Are Forever. And again, it's more than redeeming feature, is probably, arguably the best Bond theme tune ever. Famously ripped off by is Kanye West. Did a wonderful rap version of that. So it's got a great theme tune, but the problem with this movie is you've got Crispin Glover's dad, I believe, Bruce Glover, as one half of a gay assassin duo called Mr. Kidd and Mr. Wint. And the problem with them being gay shouldn't be a problem. The problem with them being gay, and I know, well, neither did I had to look it up. The problem with them being gay is that there's the conflation of bad guys' nefarious deeds being awful with being gay. And it doesn't, the film, it leaves a very sour taste in your mouth because of it. So that's one of the main reasons why it's a terrible movie. And also because Crispin Glover's dad's in it. And Crispin Glover proved what a complete arse he was after the filming of Back to the Future by creating all sorts of a stink. So his dad can't be a better human being. So on that basis alone, it's on my list at number 8.
It's fair enough.
Not a big fan.
Number 7 for me was it was a bit of a contest between Tomorrow Never Dies and The World's Not Enough. They're both crap films. Tomorrow Never Dies. They have this Murdoch-like figure,
Brosnan, aren't
who's
they?
manipulating the media to start a war, to sell newspapers or something. Which is kind
Is that the one with Robert Carlyle in? I think he plays the media magnate, like the newspaper guy, doesn't he?
No. Robert Carlyle's
Price?
in 1999's.
So who's the bad guy in this?
Jonathan Pryce.
Jonathan Pryce.
Jonathan Pryce is the
that's
bad
it,
guy
yeah.
in Tomorrow Never Dies. I'm talking about The World's Not Enough, in which Robert Carlyle is the henchman who can't feel pain or something.
Oh, whatever.
Which is a bit of a bad thing to have, actually, because you don't know if you're bleeding to death. Robert Carlyle, and it also had Denise Jones in it. What's her name? Denise Thingy. She played Christmas.
Denise the Piece?
No,
who are we talking about?
The woman in it who was like,
Do you know the problem we have with a lot? The problem that I think we're having with a lot of these Bond films that are rubbish is that we just can't remember enough about them.
She was known as like Christmas Jones or something.
Oh, right. I think I know.
Denise Richardson.
Denise Richardson. You could be right there. Right? But again, who knows? Who cares?
Who would ever know?
And that's the problem with these weak Bonds is that they're totally forgettable.
Bond was weak.
And we're talking about, hang on, but the thing with
Bond
is
not enough. He was betrayed by, was it Sophie Thingy, wasn't it?
You see, this is what's his name? What's her face?
The European actress. And
there
she
should be,
in
a good Bond film, set pieces that stand out a mile, like the dam jump in Goldeneye. Like painting the woman gold in Goldfinger. There's nothing like that in these kind of Bond films. So that is your number.
Yeah, The World Is Not Enough.
The World Is Not Enough.
It was
number
something to do with
7.
oil, maybe. I can't remember. And it had Denise someone in it playing Christmas Jones or whatever her name was.
And it's Brosnan.
She was supposed to be this scientist, and she turns up in like a little crop top and hot pants.
Oh, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, as a scientist,
it's not what scientists wear, mate.
No, it's not.
I know
It's
that
not,
because
it's
my
not.
partner is a PhD scientist, and she
doesn't own a crop top.
Maybe. But
Okay.
I mean, yeah, no.
The thing with Brosnan, I mean, Brosnan gets a lot of stick for his bondage, but I do think that scene where he bursts in a tank, he drives a tank through a wall, Goldeneye, I think it's St. Petersburg, and the moment I love is after he's driven the tank through this wall and there's rubble and there's explosions everywhere, he just straightens his tie. He looked good in a suit.
He did.
He really did. I defend
Whereas
Brosnan.
Daniel Craig looks a bit like a bouncer in a suit, let's face it.
He does, but we'll get to Daniel Craig.
Denise Richards, she played Dr. Christmas Jones.
He's looking it up. That's officially
and
cheating.
Sophie Marceau was the baddie in it.
Okay.
And Robert Carlyle played Reynard, who was...
That's it. I knew Robert Carlyle
Reynard
was
Fox,
in one of them.
I think. And I think this was the last outing of Q.
But I have to say, I'm
with Desmond
surprised
Llewellyn
you
as Q.
didn't go with the one where Jonathan Pryce is the baddie. Because honestly, Jonathan Pryce as the baddie. Seriously, Jonathan Pryce.
He's a great baddie.
He's not a great baddie.
He's good in Game of Thrones, you know. He plays this religious
Oh, does he?
leader.
Okay, well, we're not talking about Game of Thrones. We're talking about Bond.
He's like this nice guy who's evil.
All right, well, my number 6 is License to Kill.
What?
Right, I'll tell you why.
A friend of mine was in the opening sequence to License to Kill.
And that's, again, all of these films have one redeeming feature. I'll give you that.
Yes.
This one does too.
Oh, it's a great film.
The reason I don't like it is this. Let me explain why. Number 1, it's a Timothy Dalton Bond. Now, Timothy Dalton was great in Hot Fuzz as the Safeway supermarket owner. Parodying himself, something Dalton does brilliantly. Being Bond, not so much. Okay? The other big mistake they made with this one was that they had Desmond Llewellyn's Q step out of the underground bunker where he spends all his time coming up with gadgets and try badly to get involved in the action. Doesn't work. Q belongs in a bunker saying, "Don't touch that, Bond. Do be
That's
careful
my
with
lunch!
it, Bond. That's my lunch, Bond." He does not get involved in the action. He's still fitter and more agile than Roger Moore at his peak.
I imagine they just didn't have the budget.
But it's Well, you may be right, because that's my other reason for this one.
Anyway.
It almost killed the franchise, and it wasn't until Goldeneye came along and revived the franchise.
Benicio del Toro in it.
Does it really?
Yeah.
I like Benicio del Toro.
Oh, is it? No, sorry. Yeah, him, the actor. Not the director, that's Guillermo.
Guillermo del Toro.
Benicio del Toro.
It's hard to mistake the two of those.
Of the Colombian drug baron who tries to kill
They've
Felix
all got
Leiter.
one redeeming feature.
I think License to Kill.
No, the other thing I don't like about it is it doesn't understand that it's a Bond film. It tries too hard not to be a Bond film.
Yeah.
And that's its falling down
License
point.
to Kill, fun fact, it's the only Bond film since Living Daylights that I haven't seen at the cinema because it was a 15 when it came out.
Oh, was it?
It should have been a 12, but the 12 certificate I don't think had quite come out by then.
Well, it's 12A, isn't it? It's a guidance thing. You can take
No,
somebody...
it was 12. Back then you had to be 12.
Oh, it was actually 12, okay.
So when Batman came out in the UK in 1990, because don't forget it was a few months after the American launch, they brought in the 12 certificate because of things like License to Kill, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, Gremlins, which
but now it's 12A, so you can take a child under 12 to see it if you think they can cope with it.
Yes.
So it's purely on you.
I think it should be a 15A and an 18A.
Well,
it's really, really ridiculous. We live in a free society in which a 16-year-old who's French can go and see a 17-year-old French person can go and see a film that a 17-year-old English person can't see at the cinema. That is mad.
It may well be. It may well be. So where was that?
State.
So that was my License to Kill at number 6. So we're now on to number 5.
I'm going to go with On Her Majesty's Secret Service with George Lazenby, who just phoned in a performance. My dad always said...
Was that his only film as Bond?
Yeah. He always said he was he thought that George Lazenby was the best Bond, and I just never agreed with him. I thought he was very wooden, very stilted, and rubbish, whereas Sean Connery made it look effortless. I mean, Roger Moore made it even look even less, even more effortless.
That's because he wasn't capable of putting any effort in.
Little wink to the camera and a little
that's his acting style, mate.
Roger Moore's my Bond. Sorry, mate.
I'm so sorry. I grew up in the same generation as you. Roger Moore couldn't act to save his life. It was all in his eyebrows. Plus, he was a geriatric.
Again, redeeming features.
Okay, go on.
Of this, the theme tune. by Louis Armstrong. We Have All the Time in the World. Fantastic
obviously,
tune. And also Diana Rigg is brilliant in it. Diana Rigg is
great. Yeah, she is.
There is nothing built up to the shock ending of it. It just happens. It's like, it's weird. It feels like tacked onto the end.
Yeah, and it probably was.
It does not earn that ending,
that
shock ending. It was just like, why did you do that? And then they brought Sean Connery back for the next one, which
they did.
You'll put down as one of your worst. Bonds. Diamonds Are Forever.
Well, no, Diamonds. I've put it down already. That was was further down my list.
I know, but that was the next Bond film, wasn't it? Because they brought back Sean Connery.
Yes.
He actually was offered, George Lazenby was offered a 7-picture deal, and he turned it down because he didn't want to be typecast.
Well, you see, the problem is if you take the role of Bond on, you're obviously hoping to do it for more than a movie. So, apart from Lazenby. And Dalton did 3, didn't he? Was it 3 or 2 or 3? 2.
So Just Living Daylights and License to Kill.
So you're going to be kind of typecast. And to Daniel Craig's credit, now with the role as Benoit Blanc in the in the Knives Out series, and there's going to be another one apparently. I think he'll break out of that no problem. He was great in Layer Cake as well. Let's not forget Layer Cake.
Fantastic. But if
really
you were that
good.
smart, you would know my name.
Right, so let's get on to my
twist at the end of that as well. There's
Layer
got a
Cake.
great bit in Layer Cake where he goes, they're talking about robbing banks and stuff, and to make money in the prison. And there's some hippie in there who's just made $500,000 through selling some drugs. And one of the cons turns the other one goes, "We're in the wrong effing business, mate." And I'm like, yes, so.
Layer Cake was everything I think that is it Shane? Not Shane Ritchie. Shane Ritchie. Guy Ritchie wants to do, and he keeps remaking the same Cockney geezer. Kind of,
but he didn't do Layer Cake.
No, he didn't. Who was? I don't know who Layer Cake was, but all I know was great film, great performance. Yeah. Right, my number 4 is A View to a Kill, which is Moore's last Bond. Now, my argument would be... Oh,
come on, it's got Christopher Walken in it.
Well, we'll get to that as well.
Redeeming features.
No, actually, not in this case. Let me just lay it all out for you to play it out. Let's go through this. Roger Moore, even in his first outing as Bond, was far too old. He was a geriatric. He cannot act to save his life. The whole thing is a parody of itself. It's impossible to take him seriously as Bond. He was the worst Bond, hands down.
He was the best Bond, hands down.
That's so absurd.
That's why you should vote for my selection
that is
at the end of this.
So absurd. Roger Moore, the best Bond. His acting style ranged no further than the ability to move his eyebrow a little bit. That was all he could do.
He was brilliant at it.
Yes, he was very good.
Very good as that character.
But do you know what? The role of Bond demands a little bit more than the ability to move your eyebrow.
I think that he brought humour to the character.
Yes, he did.
Had to be there ever since.
He did. He brought humour to the character when it didn't need humour. He practically was brandishing a bus pass in this film. Right, the other problems with it, the stunts were tired.
Sean Connery in Never Say Never Again, which is an official Bond film.
We're not talking about that one. He was tired, he was lame. Now, Chris Walken as the forgettable villain, most people...
Zoran?
I'm sorry, most people... Hang on, Chris Walken was in that? Chris Walken was in that?
Christopher Walken.
All right.
He doesn't like to be
I like to call him Chris. Christopher Walken is a brilliant actor who's delivered some amazing performances in a lot of great films.
Hey, I'm walking here.
Exactly. Leonardo DiCaprio's dad in that Tom Hanks film, Catch Me If You Can, the Steven Spielberg film?
Yes, he was.
Something about the mouse crawling to the top of the cream. Great
another
speech.
Excellent Steven Spielberg film.
And Pulp Fiction.
Much better than E.T.
He plays the guy that gives Bruce Willis the watch.
The watch.
Now, anyway,
the gold watch.
He's a great actor. No disputing that. Which is why his performance in this film is such a shocker, because he's forgettable.
You're the shocker.
Now, there is a saving grace in this film.
Go on.
See what I did here. This is great.
Yeah, saving grace.
Saving grace in this film.
Yeah.
The performance of Grace Jones. Now, Grace Jones is great in this. And that's the one single saving grace. I mean, it's Roger Moore. Need I say more? No. End of. Your choice.
Okay, my number 3 is You'll Only Live Twice. This was supposed to be the last Sean Connery film, but obviously he came back to do Diamonds Are Forever, and then he came back again to do Never Say Never Again at the age of 97.
Right.
Anyway, You Only Live Twice. This was the fifth Bond film. So you'd had at this point you had Dr. No, Russia with Love, Goldfinger, Thunderball. It was the 5th Bond film, and it was about we had to go to Japan. Now I think this is one with Blofeld in it, and I've forgotten who was playing Blofeld in this particular movie.
Well, if it was Christoph Waltz, it would have been great because
I think it was Donald Pleasance.
I think you might be right. Yeah.
And but my problem with it is there is a bit where Bond goes undercover in Japan, and they make him look Japanese. but he doesn't. He looks like a gruff Scotsman who's had his eyelids sort of pushed together, and
my
it's
God.
so racist and wrong, and just it's
Is
so
it not-
cringe on every level.
Is it on a par with when they make the lead actor up in Team America's
Yes,
Old Police?
that's where they got it from. That's what they're taking
Right.
the piss
Are you
out
serious?
of. Yeah, in Team America, where
okay.
the Islamification.
Yeah, and they
of him.
basically just graft some eyebrows and some
Yes.
facial hair onto him.
That's what they did to Bond.
and to make him into an Iraqi.
Yes.
Right, so that's what they did to Bond in this film. I don't remember
And
that.
he also died. He also died in You Only Live Twice. People say, "Oh, in the new Bond film, spoilers, the lead."
Also-
and I was like, "Well, actually, no, he died in You Only Live Twice because
Yeah.
the thing was in that he had to pretend to be dead." So they
Is that why it's called You Only Live Twice?
Yeah, they only mock up his own.
Because I was going to say
mock up his
that's a
own
pretty
funeral.
bad time. The problem with a lot of Bond films
But
are
it
the
was Donald
meaningless
Pleasant.
titles.
Donald Pleasant and every one of these films has its redeeming feature, right?
Yeah.
That's what I love about Bond films. And Donald Pleasant plays Blofeld in this, and
Yeah,
Stavros
yeah.
Blofeld. Obviously played by Terry Savalas in the next film, but in this one it was Donald Pleasant.
Well, Donald Pleasance
Very
is
good.
great. I mean, he's a great Blofeld, and you're right that they do have one redeeming feature. These bad films, and again, we want to hear what your choice of the worst Bond film will be, because everyone's going to have their favourite worst Bond film. There's no definitive list. That's the thing about lists. But I'm going to take a stab at telling you what I believe the worst Bond film of all time is. And I know some people will agree. I know some people might try and defend it. But if you're trying
Who's
to
gonna defend it,
if you're
Ben?
going to try and defend this film,
Ben got to pick first on this
Okay,
one, as you'll see,
you're gonna-
as you'll hear.
if you're going to try and defend this film, you're on a real losing streak here. Die Another Day. One of the Pierce Brosnan canon.
2002.
Yeah, which
The last
is,
one of Pierce Brosnan?
I believe it is. There's so much wrong with this film.
Go on,
It's hard to
quick,
know where to
give us a
start.
rundown.
I will save the best till last because it's so ridiculous. And again, we'll start with a redeeming feature, actually. Rosamund Pike is in this film. Now, Rosamund Pike is a brilliant actress. She has delivered... I mean, she was in Gone Girl. She was fantastic in Gone Girl. She was the mum in What We Did on Our Holidays with Billy Connolly and David Tennant, which was incredibly funny. She's a really versatile actress as well. Lots of promise
An
there.
assassin or something, isn't
But
she?
it doesn't deliver on that promise because everything else is wrong with it. Now, let's start off with the theme tune. No one can remember the theme tune to this film. It was Madonna, and it should have been a really, really good, catchy earworm track. It wasn't. She's also in it. There's a scene
Yes.
with her fencing in it. Now,
she's
Madonna,
rubbish.
but the thing about Madonna is every film she's ever been in is crap. They're vanity projects like Swept Away.
Yeah.
Desperately Seeking Susan. She was in the biopic of the Argentinian... What's the name of that
Evita.
woman? Evita. That's the one. Which wasn't a terrible film. It was
Eva
Alan
Peron.
Parker, wasn't it? Eva Peron. That wasn't terrible. That was probably the exception that proves the rule. But in this, she is atrocious.
She was in Dick Tracy.
She was in Dick Tracy, but that's not a great film
Woman
either. That's
DC.
not a great film. Anyway, so a completely non-memorable Bond theme.
Yeah.
A performance from Madonna, which immediately puts this in the bottom.
Okay,
the
come
bottom
on.
end
Come
of
on.
the list.
You got to say it, mate. Go
Yeah,
on.
well, we'll
I
do.
know
We'll
what
get
you're
there.
gonna say. Go on,
the
say it.
SFX in this film is terrible. A really, really lame script. There's no chemistry between the lead actors. And there's an invisible car.
There's an invisible car,
An
which you
invisible
can
car.
hide behind.
Now, hang on.
Which you can hide behind. There's
Right.
a bit where he hides behind the invisible car, which is supposed to project what's on the other side of the car.
Exactly.
Why can't they see him through the
I know.
car?
Hello. Well, we're getting into plot flaws as well, plot holes as well. Now, what I want from a Bond film is I want Desmond Llewellyn
one can argue
or
against
Ben
this.
Whishaw now in the basement with the gadgets. The gadgets in a Bond film have got to...
John
they've got
Cleese
to
in this movie.
John Cleese in this movie. Oh, for goodness sake. The reveal of this ridiculous car is in an underground, deserted underground station as well. Look, forget that for a second. What I want from a Bond gadget is something that treads that fine tightrope between being believable, like, wow, they could make that one day. That would be so cool to have that. You know, everything from a pen that fires bullets or some deadly virus into your nervous system. But an invisible car, I mean, it's not even credible sci-fi. It's just utterly ridiculous. And then this vehicle spends the rest of the film...
It is credible sci-fi.
An invisible car.
Yeah, because you have a pinhole camera on the other side of the car and it projects
Yeah,
onto...
I get that. I get that.
Onto
But even if
material that can...
Right,
it's like
but
a
even
screen
if that
could be-
was possible, it would still end up looking
is
like a
possible.
character... You know when the Terminator in T2 goes all sort of metallic? You'd still see some kind of shine or sheen. You can't have an invisible car. For a start, the thing makes
Why
noise.
would it have shine
Hang on a minute.
if you
What's
have
the
like a
point of an invisible car? if it makes noise. Now, at no point in this film do I believe, and I might be wrong, because you can correct me if I'm wrong, is it mentioned that the car is quiet?
Looking through binoculars into the valley, and it just looks like the wind.
It's just ridiculous, and it's that desperate reaching for something novel to put into a Bond film to revive a flagging Brosnan franchise.
It makes sense if you think of it from side to side, but think about it if you're seeing it from above. How does it project the road underneath that has the shadow of the car on it?
It doesn't.
So it looks perfect.
It doesn't. I mean, they didn't think it through. They really didn't think it through.
The tyres. How did
and you know what?
The tyres?
I didn't exactly, and I didn't even list the fact you've got John Cleese in it. How can you take a Bond film seriously with John Cleese? Comic actor
It gets
Bond.
better. Ben, I've got something else.
No,
you know, we're talking about Bond films always have a redeeming feature.
No, this one
doesn't.
Well, no, it doesn't. It doesn't. I will
doesn't.
say it should have done, because Rosamund Pike is in it and she is brilliant. But the film is a stinker from start to end. It's not even so bad it's funny. I'm not advising you to go and watch it because it's worth watching because it's that bad. It's just rubbish. But it's ridiculous.
The big reveal at the end
makes me angry.
Is that the knighted Olympic fencing champion turned out to be the North Korean that Bond was after in the pre-credit sequence.
But by then,
after extensive facial reconstruction surgery, Bond was only held by the North Koreans for, 9 months or something? It wasn't 9 freaking years. So let's give it a year, just to be generous. You have a year in which this guy recovers from his injuries because he went off a cliff or something. He gets bandaged up. He gets a new face. He gets knighted by the Queen. He becomes an Olympic fencing champion.
Do you know what?
Did no one read the script?
It sounds like Forrest Gump. It's got that Forrest Gump element.
Yes.
Anyone can do anything.
In 1 year, he becomes this famous Olympic champion in less than a year.
Although this is clearly the worst Bond film ever, and Graham is on an absolute hiding to nothing for this one. But I will say this in its defence, and I forgot to mention it earlier. In redeeming features, there is one redeeming feature.
What is that?
The opening credit sequence, instead of featuring endless parades of scantily clad girls or golden guns and glamorising of violence,
getting tortured.
It's Bond getting tortured. Now,
to Madonna.
Hang on. No, the reason I think that's good is because they were clearly trying to bring it into the modern age. They were clearly trying to do something a little bit different. So the fact that Bond is being tortured by Madonna in the opening credit sequence, I don't have a problem with that.
Turn it off!
Because at that point, I was a bit sick and tired of Brosnan.
I'll tell you anything!
Exactly. So that's my choice for number one. You can hear Graham's, you can listen to what he's got to say about his choice, but as you know, there is no debate here, so go straight to the Twitter feed, vote for it now.
Hang on, let me say my piece.
You can say your piece, and I'll even be completely silent for you.
Okay.
Away you go.
Die Another Day was awful. I agree, and it should definitely be in the top 2. I think it should be number 2. I think the worst Bond film of all time is 2015 Spectre. I think it is bloody awful. Again, no memorable theme tune. Who did that? Billie Eilish or
no idea.
Sam Smith or who was it?
Someone like that.
Someone. I can't remember it, right? But that's not the main thing. The main issue with this Bond film is it tries to tie up the Bond films that came before it with Daniel Craig in.
Yeah.
And tie the plot to these very, very different movies together like there's an overarching story. And it just doesn't work. It's like getting 3 random movies out from Blockbuster and then going, hey, as a little bit of a challenge, let's all make these part of the same movie universe. When they're really, really not on any way, shape or form. And then it goes to great lengths to do stupid bloody things. First of all, they have this train through the desert in which a henchman paid by Blofeld tries to kill Bond. He's unsuccessful, and then when Bond turns up at this facility in the desert, Blofeld says to him, great, I've been expecting you. I'm like, no, you haven't. You thought he was going to die. You sent someone to... Why did you have all this thing set up? You had this torture chamber set up specifically for Bond. And it's like, what? And then the absolute worst bit of this movie is there was a movie series called Austin Powers. There were 3 movies: Austin Powers, The Spy. There was International Man of Mystery, The Spy Who Shagged Me, and Goldmember. Right?
Yeah.
And the joke at the end of Goldmember, where Michael Caine plays the dad of Austin Powers, is that Austin and Dr. Evil are long lost brothers.
Right, okay.
And they took that bloody plot device and they put it into an actual real. They took the idea from a parody of Bond films and put it in a genuine Bond film and made Blofeld the brother, the stepbrother of James Bond. We grew up together, James.
I'll give you that.
We went on skiing holidays. Remember that skiing holidays where you threw a snowball at me?
All right.
Well, you're going to pay for that, Bond.
Okay, look, 2 points. Number 1, Spectre is a cool one-word title.
Okay, I'll give it that.
It's a cool title for a Bond film. Number 2, it has that brilliant opening sequence, The Day of the Dead in Mexico.
That is quite good.
That's really good.
One redeeming feature.
Well, that's 2 redeeming features. It's got a great title and a fantastic sort of opening set piece. Really good.
Okay,
Enjoyed
another
that.
problem that I had with it
Go on, then.
is that, as far as Bond knows, he's not chasing someone called Blofeld for many, many episodes, right? Which happened in the original run. I think Blofeld is actually mentioned maybe in Doctor No, or at least in Russia from Love. So he's got this person that he's looking for. So when he finally finds Donald Pleasance in not Diamonds Are Forever, You Only Live Twice, it's this reveal. Finally, this criminal mastermind we've talked about for ages, and here he is. And Bond's like, oh, you've been my nemesis for all this time. In the film Spectre, he's never heard of Blofeld before. No one has. It's only because they managed to get the copyright back to use the character of Blofeld from Kevin What's-His-Face, who had owned it. He's the guy who got Never Say Never Again made. Anyway, they got the copyright on the name back, so they're like, great, we can use this name again. And he goes, I am Ernst Stavros Blofeld. And it means nothing to the characters in the movie. It's just fan service.
Look, I'll give you all that, but
absolute
I've got
garbage.
Two words for you, Graham.
Go on.
Invisible car.
Okay, was that unrealistic? Was that a bit unrealistic? What about at the end of Spectre, where James Bond is given an impossible choice? They love doing this in movies, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
Save the girl or stop the building from being blown up and everyone dying, right?
Yeah.
And he does both.
That's very Austin
and
Powers.
Escapes.
Very Austin Powers.
Just no.
In fact, I think that was the ending of the
That's what I liked.
Me.
One of the things I loved about Batman: The Dark Knight is that he was given the impossible choice and he had to make a choice, and it resulted in his girlfriend getting blown up.
That film was called The Dark Knight. It was dark.
I know, but it should have had a thing where Bond tries to save the love of his life, and he's got to make that choice.
Yes, I know, but the problem is that,
or do I save London, or
Bond films have to end on an optimistic note where the world and the girl is saved. That's how they work. That's the
last
formula.
Bond film certainly didn't.
Oh, hang on a minute. Judi Dench. You're talking about Skyfall.
No, the last Bond film.
The last Bond film. What was the last Bond film?
No Time to Die.
Whatever it's called. Look,
is that what you say to an Australian mate? You're coming out later. They say, I've got no time to die.
Oh, that's hilarious. Well done. Look, we're going to have to wrap this up because we're actually in danger of going over time on an episode that I didn't think would be particularly contentious because there is no debate. Guys.
No, it's Spectre. Spectre is the worst Bond movie. Because of reasons.
Whether you're Camp Spectre or Camp Die Another Day, head on over to our Twitter feed.
Ben,
go on.
Ben, is there something you could do to make Die Another Day a good movie?
Destroy the negative and ensure that there's no prints available to ever be seen again.
Whereas Spectre was so close to being a good movie, and that's why I find it so frustrating.
Okay. I mean, you've come up.
A few tweaks,
I have to hand it to you.
It could have been one of the best Bond movies.
For a film that clearly isn't the worst Bond movie, you've delivered a very good case, a very passionate case in defence of it being the worst Bond film.
Let me know what you think in the comments.
Please do. So head on over to our Twitter feed, vote in the poll. You've got 6 days to do that. Vote Die Another Day.
Vote Spectre.
And please leave us your comments on which you believe is really the worst Bond film. And of course, if you like what we're doing, head on over to our Ko-fi and drop us a couple of quid for a coffee or a beer.
Absolutely.
And don't forget, if you want your list of top 10s made into a show dedicated just for you, 50 quid on the Ko-fi site with your email address, that would be a big help, and what you'd like us to do the list on, and we'll deliver that within 28 days for you to keep and treasure forever. Thank you so much, Graham. It's been a pleasure as always.
It's been a huge pleasure. I just want to say before I go, in your comments, only official Bond films, please. Not 1967's Casino Royale and not 1983's.
Wasn't there a Woody Allen one? There's a Woody Allen one.
Yeah, that's Casino Royale.
That's right. You can't have that one. No,
David Niven.
Exactly.
Woody Allen.
Obviously, official Bond films, and that doesn't include the Austin Powers franchise. Thank you very much. It could do. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.